of cultural events.
It's actually important to me because I've recently been getting back into touch with my Chinese heritage. It's a perfect time for us to be here at like this museum and the event for that reason, I think.
Kids, here's your chance to submit names for Metro's tunnel boring machines. Upgrades are coming to DeLong Prairie Park in Hollywood, and the Department of Cultural Affairs launches a new food mapping project. All this in City Beat. Calling all kids. Metro is ready to start construction on their new Purple Line extension between Beverly Hills and Century City, but they need your help. The underground tunnel boring machines can't begin work until they get names and custom-themed artwork. Community appreciation and fun prizes await the selectees, so pitch your best ideas into the hat now at metro.net. Councilmember David Ryu is spearheading improvements to DeLong Prairie Park in Hollywood. The popular park will receive a much-needed facelift, including a shade structure, play areas, security lights and cameras, and an overall family-friendlier design. The project is personally important to Ryu, who says, "City parks were my backyard." And technology has never been so yummy. The Department of Cultural Affairs invites you to participate in a citywide food appreciation project. Nominate your favorite restaurants and help map out exactly where Los Angeles is chowing down. Join the interactive experience and contribute to the city's food history at #LookingAtMyLosAngeles on all social media platforms. Folks in Mar Vista got into the neighborly spirit as they hit one of their great streets for an evening of live art, music, and of course, food trucks.
We are in lovely Mar Vista. Here at the Mar Vista Art Walk, it's a wonderful community event that happens 4 times a year. We have live music, live painting, all kinds of art vending. Businesses are wide open. They love the foot traffic. We have between 3,000 and 5,000 people walking the streets of Mar Vista. It's a wonderful event. The Mar Vista Art Walk was founded in 2015 using the footprint and the guidance of Mayor Garcetti's one of his very first campaign initiatives, which was and remains the Great Streets Initiative. The idea behind the Great Streets is that in each of the 15 council districts, there is a street or a boulevard that is actually kind of a town center. And we have been very successful in activating our Great Street. The Council District 11 Great Street is Venice Boulevard between Inglewood and Beethoven. And 4 times a year, we have this great event that transpires each quarter, spring, summer, fall, winter. The entire community has come out in increasing numbers to enjoy everything that we have.
Celebrate the 65th anniversary of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Take a bite out of a vegan street fair. And are you a fan of the Hellboy comics? Well, here's your chance to meet the creator. All this in Things to Do. Join the West Valley Regional Library for Creature Fest, a celebration of the 65th anniversary of Creature from the Black Lagoon. The branch will be showing all 3 Creature movies, along with commentary and discussion led by the Guys from Monster Party podcast. Creature Fest begins at 11 a.m. on Saturday, March 23rd. The screening will happen at the West Valley Regional Library at 19036 Van Owen Street. For details, visit lapl.org/events. Calling all vegans, the Vegan Street Fair is returning to NoHo. This all-ages vegan food celebration will feature vegan-friendly restaurants and vendors serving up bite-sized portions of delicious vegan eats. You'll also find tons of vegan wear that let you express your style. It's all happening at the Vegan Street Fair March 23rd and 24th, beginning at 11 a.m. The fair is located at 11223 Chandler Boulevard. For more info, visit veganstreetfair.com. Head over to Earth 2 Comics, where Hellboy creator Mike Mignola is meeting fans and signing comics. Spend Hellboy Day celebrating its 25th anniversary and heralding the upcoming movie with the iconic character's creator. Mike Mignola stops by Earth 2 Comics on Saturday, March 23rd, beginning at 2 p.m. Earth 2 Comics is located at 15017 Ventura Boulevard. For details, visit earth2comics.com. And that's a look at some things to do. That's it for this edition. I'm Yana Kay. From all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time for more of LA This Week.
California is earthquake country. We're all in this together.
I keep the city's computers running and up to date.
I launched a website to 4 million Angelinos.
Our team created a program
that pays 48,000 city employees.
I help LA residents access all the city has to offer.
I make TV shows that air on LA City View 35.
I set up a data center in Las Vegas so city systems could keep running in the event of an earthquake.
I survey, install, and service communication towers for thousands of police and firefighters.
I'm building a robot that tests police radios to make sure they're reliable.
And I program Amazon Alexa to help people access city services. Alexa, ask LA City, how do I pay for parking ticket?
For LA City, you can pay your ticket in one of 4 convenient ways.
Los indios dicen que el río está cerca. We enter a spacious valley, well grown with cottonwoods and alders, among which run a beautiful...
Dawson, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rodriguez, Rue, Smith, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Rodriguez moves, Rue seconds. Next.
Approval of the minutes.
Blumenfield moves, Buscaino seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday and time for the flag salute.
Okay, we'll be led today by Mr. Buscaino. All rise for our flag salute. All rise for the flag salute.
With great honor, Mr. President, let us pledge our allegiance to the greatest symbol of freedom and the greatest flag on earth. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Let's run through the agenda.
Mr. President, there is a request to continue item 38 for 1 week to March 26th.
So ordered. Next.
Items 1 through 3 are items noticed for public hearing. A motion is required for item 3, and that should be held on the desk.
Okay, let's hold that. Do you have cards?
Yes, there are
Mr.
cards
Cedillo?
and one.
I didn't hear you.
We'd like to pull item 26.
We're not there yet.
Thank you.
Okay, so where are we?
We're holding items 1 and 3, so that leaves item 2 that's available for council to vote.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Continue.
And Mr. President, that ordinance will be held over 1 week unless reconsidered with 12 members.
Thank you.
That takes council to items 4 through 22, which are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on these items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Go to the next section.
Items 23 through 45 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do you have cards?
Yes. There are cards on 24, 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, 33, 35, 36, 37, 40, 41, 42, 43, and 44.
Okay, why don't we vote on the remaining items?
And that leaves 23, 25, 27, 32, 34, 39, and 45 to be voted on.
Okay, so let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where?
Mr. President, takes council back to presentations, items called special or general public comment.
Okay, what I want to do is take up 2 multi-general public comments quickly. If I could get Mr. Previn and Ms. McAllister. Mr. Previn, you have items 1 through 1F, 24, 26, 28 through, I lost it.
There were a couple in the 40s, sir.
30, 31, 33, 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 41, 43, and 44. Go ahead.
Okay, well, certainly the 6th Street Viaduct item, which is in the section where you're allowed to speak on, I signed up. Yesterday at Budget and Finance, we heard some bad news. There was a 6.6 million, 7.2 million when you add the other piece, shortfall because the federal government rejected some of our grant requests. So it's a bit of a workaround. I guess it's up in street service, or I don't know exactly who was trying to accommodate. There was a bunch of disappointed council members. Blumenfield was trying to be decent about it, but it was a teeny bit upsetting, if truth be told. You got a number of items on your agenda here vacating city property. And whenever we do that, we just want to make sure that the public is properly notified. And part of that notification process is obviously agendas. And I wanted to applaud the clerk today for putting a small stack up, but they do need to put a writing, because we know Mr. Bootner's down here today and some dignitaries, so we're going to put out a few agendas, but then the days, just put them out and we're good. Let's move forward. Okay. And put a writing to the effect that you will do so, Mr. Fauble. I very much appreciate that. Now, the LA River is in my district, and we are definitely trying to do some workarounds for the bicycle stuff, but we have to make sure that during the transportation meetings, we're not fully disenfranchising members of the public during their comment time by bunching them. Now, you've tried to bunch me into a million items, so everybody knows I can't do it, but I'm trying. You can't do that. It's against the rules.
So why don't we move on to the agenda
Get on
items?
top.
No. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'd like to stay on the subject. There's a lot of important items on the agenda today, including the liens on property, which, once again, we are experiencing a homelessness crisis. So we all know that. We read about how folks, there's a great article about the people living in their vehicles who are not terrible drug addicts or criminals or something like that. They're just people who are trying to get by in a very, very onerous environment. And yet we continue to tighten the screws. And then the one thing that I'm very upset about was that you settled the big case with Carol Sobel again, and we don't even know the terms. I feel it's appropriate.
Topic, Mr.
Let's move forward, but I do want to know the terms. I think the public wants to know the terms.
Again, let's
get
back to the agenda items, Mr. President.
I'm totally with you, sir. I want to thank Koretz for coming up with $100,000 for the spay and neutering program. I don't think there's a single person, with the exception of Blumenfield, who has been more friendly to the animals and to the programs. And Barnett's back here. We're all excited that we're taking care of that population. And we just want to make sure, sir, that you finally get to the bottom of why Holly Walcott was writing memos about rats for the first time just the day after Deron Williams was
Okay, let's give him his
subpoenaed.
1 minute for general public.
Well, thank you. The 1 minute for general public comment has to be directed to my appreciation for David Rue. David Rue, who, to my understanding, is not Jewish, is Ruish. He's going to be providing, believe it or not, the funding coverage for our upcoming Heritage Celebration that I want to give full credit where credit is due. It was Koretz and the other crew who put that through because they felt that, and it may not be unreasonable, that heritage of all types should be celebrated with public money in some way, and they wanted to get theirs, and David Rue is covering the cost in the short term. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the folks in my community. We definitely appreciate it. We also would appreciate it if Mr. Koretz, Mr. Bonin, and where's David Rue, could come to Studio City to chit-chat about that chart we did about the campaign finance. To refresh your memory, sir, it was the chart that showed that all of the public matching money goes to the incumbents and David Rue. So that's why he's the poster boy for it's not all incumbents, but it is. And we really wanted to change that. And now you've got a stinky election out in CD12 that was pushed through when Englander stepped off to become a lobbyist. You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. McAllister.
I should have 3 minutes on here, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Good morning,
wait
Mr.
a hot second. You'll get it. You have items 1A, 1F, 28, 27, 38, 41, and 44 in your general public comment. Your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm looking at number 38 here, where we're talking about teachers and more funding and raises for teachers, and I'm for that because I am a teacher. And Mr. President, I have concerns about the teacher retirement system under CalSTRS, the California State Teacher Retirement System, and under LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, and a company called Phase 2 Systems. They're doing business as PARS. Now, there's a case number CGC 1151117, where a class action lawsuit against PARS, where the San Francisco Unified School District sued them and they settled. This PARS agency claimed they had a 2% at 60 benefit, unrealistic, outmoded tables and everything, and they scammed the San Francisco school district, and the school district, they settled. Now, these are the people who are handling LAUSD's and most of the state of California's retirement system. Now, they've also had another New York State threw them out of New York State for fraud and operating a pyramid scheme. Yes, it's called the Phase 2 Systems. They threw them out. They weren't even supposed to be doing business in New York. They are registered to do business in California and Nevada. Also, another case, B is in Charles, C is in Charlie, 435373. A teacher with LAUSD, Mr. Joseph Richard Yimavin, he went to a seminar. They had seminars saying, okay, this is just pre-training or pre-conference for teachers who are thinking about retiring. And they would give you a draft to look at and sign and say, oh, we're not going to turn this in, retire you. We just want you to sign it, and then we'll look at it later. Well, they take the draft, turn it in, retire you. You don't even know you've been retired. That's how crooked these people are. It's called PARS, P-A-R-S, Public Agency Retirement System. They settled with that teacher. He won that case. Okay, now, they're stealing billions out of the teacher retirement fund right now. What they're doing is taking CalSTRS money out of the California State teachers and putting it into this PARS program, sending out fake annual statements to teachers. Teachers don't even know their money is being funneled from the California State retirement system into this PARS agency. Now, who's involved? LAU is involved. CalSTRS is involved in PARS. Okay, LAUSD takes your money out of your check. You look at your check stub, you think it's going into the teacher's retirement system, and then LAUSD funnels it into this PARS agency who has been involved in all kinds of crimes. We need this PARS agency investigated by the federal government. We need the California State Teachers Retirement System investigated, and we need LAUSD investigated, because the LAUSD is on top of the pyramid. They're the ones who take the money out of your check, and then they funnel it to this other agency, and you don't even know your money is sitting in there. And once they funnel it, almost half of your money disappears, because this agency, PARS, takes the money out too. And I've got the whole thing. There's a lawsuit against this right now. Thank you, Mr. President.
public comment minute.
Mr. President, like I said, I am a teacher and I work with some wonderful teachers in Los Angeles. I'm from Chicago, so I taught there also. These teachers work hard. They spend their own money buying supplies. The district don't even want school supplies to give them money for that. They spend their money. And let me show you how abused these teachers are. You go to the ladies' room, they don't give us a break. When the bell rings, we might get 5 minutes. You go into the ladies' room, the urine is so dark it looks black. What does that mean? The teachers don't even get a chance to go to the bathroom. And it's a public record that most teachers have urinary tract infections. Yes, they almost gave me one, but I don't take that crap. You know, I'm gonna take my break. But this is how teachers are being abused. And I'm not gonna sit by when they retire and see their retirement money get stolen from them. And then you know what they tell them? Oh, you can buy some service credits at the end. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars into this system, and almost half of that money is being stolen. So there is a case currently in the Superior Court against this PARS agency and LAUSD. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. And that concludes or closes our multi-public comment section. Okay, let's take up item 37. Mr. Buscaino, maybe what we'll do, we'll allow you to kind of set this up.
Sure.
Then we'll get testimony from the public.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if you don't mind, sir, I'd like to call up our representatives from the LA Unified School District, Superintendent Austin Buettner to come to the table, Board Member Dr. Vladovic, Board Member Dr. McKenna, Board Member Mr. Schmerlerson, Conrado Guerrero, President of SEIU 99, and Jeff Good, Executive Director of UTLA. Please come to the table, and I can tee this up as they're making their way to the table. Colleagues, less than 2 months ago, as you recall, 35,000 of our teachers went on a 7-day strike to send a message about the dire conditions in classrooms across Los Angeles. In fact, they were at our doorstep. We here, as we were in council chambers, heard loud and clear teachers, parents, students demanding a fair contract. But one thing we need to be aware of, before Prop 13, California used to pride itself on how well we funded public education. Please sit, gentlemen. I think we're short one chair.
They're bringing one chair, Mr. Buscaino.
But while the Los Angeles City Council does not have a direct role in LUSD operations, we do have a collected voice to speak up in support of our teachers, students, and parents. And I know a few of our parents around this horseshoe have children who attend LA Unified Schools, and a number of us here around this horseshoe are proud LAUSD alumni. My wife and sisters are LAUSD teachers, and my children are proud LAUSD students, which is why I feel so strongly about vocally supporting efforts to improve the educational landscape for students and teachers. Today, this council before you has the power to put our voice of support behind an important measure to increase funding of our local public schools. And I remember attending Leland Street Elementary School in San Pedro, where never a day a teacher had to ask my parents for donations for school supplies. Fast forward, my two kids, my son and daughter, attended elementary school, South Shores Elementary in San Pedro. First day of school, they would come home with a message from a teacher asking for donations, asking for crayons, paper, pencils. The day where my daughter came home from school and said, we did not go to our computer lab today because it was shut down. We didn't have adequate staffing. Or when my son says his English teacher had to squeak by walking through his classroom because the classroom was overcrowded. So this resolution before you, colleagues, takes a position in support of quality teacher, class size reduction, local school safety measure, and this is a parcel tax that will appear before our local voters on June 4th. A parcel tax, I believe, is the most equitable and least regressive means to increase local funding for public education. It would only benefit our local schools here. In a time where our local schools have to be competitive, Because I hear stories of residents in San Pedro and Wilmington fleeing our school districts for other school districts, taking a 20-hour-a-week job in Palos Verdes, in Torrance, in Carson, and other municipalities so their kids can go to a better school district, which is a shame. We need to invest in our local schools, our local school communities. But we feel now is the time to restore California's education system to its former glory. As we saw last week with the college cheating scandal, our state's inequality gives unfair advantages to the wealthy when it comes to education. We must course correct, and the best way to do this is to invest in every student's education. And we also have to realize a price per pupil. My legislative director, Dennis Gleason, made a good point. He attended a school in Fairfax, Virginia, where today 33% more per student is spent than LAUSD students. So all students in our state deserve an equal education, and this measure is a step forward towards achieving this goal. Mr. President, if I may turn to the gentleman at this table and whoever wants to kick it off, why this is important, and the school board that made a decision to put this on the ballot come June 4th. And I'll turn to my local school board member, Dr. Vladevic, to kick it off.
Thank you very much, Councilman Buscaino, and I see some of my friends here. I want to look over and see Ms. Martinez, and hello. Nice to see you. We were colleagues on the board, and very strong feelings about her commitment to education. I wanted to say, as a school board member for Los Angeles and a proud graduate, all of my children went to Los Angeles, my wife, the entire family. We've made a stand to stay here in Los Angeles because we feel our schools are doing a job. We could all do better, but we do a job every day, and I'm proud to say that. I'm a reflective graduate of that. But I also wanted to say, you know, the state of California, and it's not blame time, but the state of California funds our schools. If you look at the 50 states, we get funding. We're about at the 44th level. So there are 44 states that fund education more. And you know, by living in California, the costs are extreme. We are asking the community, the only way we can raise money is through a parcel tax that goes to our general fund. Our budget is 86% people. These are teachers, these are aides, these are psychologists. The state doesn't fund us. Our only alternative is to go for a parcel tax. And we need your help. The state needs to step up, but I know our councilmen and the rest of the council are going to support us in this effort. We know that our children, you can't put a cost on them, but the state has. They've determined that we're going to spend 44 compared to the 50 states, and that's it. And all I'm saying to you is our children deserve better, and we're asking for your support and the residents of Los Angeles to help us and join us into making a difference for our children. This money's going to go directly to support of children, and I can't think of a better way to spend my tax dollars as an LA resident, a lifelong resident. So I want to thank Councilman Buscaino for this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vladevic. To our superintendent of schools, Austin Buettner, overseeing 600,000 students and over 1,000 schools in LA Unified, please share with us why this is important.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Buscaino, for bringing this forward. All of you for your time today, Council President Wesson. I think this is the place actually to have this conversation because public education is the foundation for our entire community. As Dr. Vladevic noted, our particular responsibility in Los Angeles Unified is to make sure each and every day that child, she or he, reaches their full potential. We've got 60,000 employees who give their heart and soul each and every day, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, driving our buses, teaching in our classrooms, making sure the after-school programs keep our kids safe and learning. But we are the foundation of the entire community. And if we're not making the right investment in our children, Los Angeles does not have a bright future as a community. So we appreciate your willingness to acknowledge this. We understand the importance of making sure we are good stewards for the resources the taxpayers give us today, and it's our commitment to make sure the additional funding goes into our schools, into our classrooms, to provide that margin of excellence for all of our students. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. If you will, why don't you let me do this? Okay, who's next?
Yep.
Mr. My man. Dr. McKenna, floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Weston, my friend, and I won't say more than that, but thank you so much. Mr. Buscaino, thank you for your support and the presentation of this. I've got some talking points here to keep me from going too long, because I have a tendency to get caught up in talking about children and needs, and you'd be here for a while. You wouldn't leave, but you'd be discontented with me talking for so long. The single most important thing we can do for our children, your children unborn, is a future for provide a good education. Having been the product of segregated schools in New Orleans, Louisiana, the one thing I absolutely needed to be here today was a good education. Even if it was segregated, hand-me-down textbooks, but I had a good education. I went to public and Catholic schools and went to an HBCU. So I know the importance of an education. My mother was a school teacher, so I think I have education in my blood. The needs for our schools are greater than the resources provided for them. We are dependent upon the state. But rather than wait for the state to catch up with us, we have to be proactive. And this local measure will allow us to do some very specific things: lowering class size, retaining high-quality teachers and school employees. We need nurses, librarians, counseling and other health and human services, and quality instructional programs. The one thing that we are trying to do, and we can't do it with this one amendment, a parcel tax. We can't solve the problem. We continue to address the problem. And we don't solve the problem because we've not gotten to the concept of adequacy. We talk about equity, but that's not the same as adequacy. Okay, we talked about equality when I was in the South, and we got to equity, which is not sufficiency. This will not be sufficient either. So I don't want to give you the wrong impression that this will solve our problems. It will address a problem that should never have existed in the first place. We owe it to our children to have nothing called an underperforming school, a place to avoid, a place to measure our success against some other people, the other, whoever the other are. Children should have a choice to go to the closest school to them that is excellent, not to avoid looking for some other opportunity that is beyond their means, beyond their reach. So we look forward to your support for this. We want to say that Measure EE will not only help us, it will also have accountability. We will ensure that there is an oversight committee, and we will report to the community on a regular basis as to what we're using those funds for, so that you can see them on a line item, that we can say these are the places where we're using our funds, and children are being sufficiently and adequately resourced to the extent that we can get these resources in our hands. Thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for caring about us. One final thing. This group, as important as you are, you know how important we are, because we have your offspring. We have your legacy in our hands every day. Now, if you know something more important than children, please tell me that before I leave here, so I'm not uninformed, as I have been for many years, by believing children are the most important thing in our society. And we have them every day. By law, they're required to come to us. And so you don't want us to fail. You don't want us to be in an unsafe environment. You don't want us to be under-resourced. You don't want us to be disappointed. Please help us. We will appreciate it beyond the words I'm saying today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Scott.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Buscaino, for presenting this. I'm probably going to be the shortest speaker you've ever seen in your life, but that's me. I was a teacher and an assistant principal and a principal, and I do know the schools. If we think that education is worthwhile, if we think that we want good educated students and parents and adults, we have to support our schools. Time after time I go to schools and I see signs, parents, please donate tissues. Please donate Scotch tape. Please donate paper. They shouldn't have to do that. Parents should not have to volunteer to raise money for things at school. That is our obligation. So I thank you very much, and I appreciate what you do. And if kids' education matters, then this is an easy task to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Good, are you next? Or?
Yes, sir. Good morning, City Council staff, members of the community. My name is Jeff Good. I'm the Executive Director for United Teachers Los Angeles, and on behalf of 34,000 members, our 34,000 members, I urge this respected council to vote yes on the support resolution for Measure EE. Our city experienced something amazing this past December and January as an entire community came together through the UTLA strike and said, we believe in our public schools, we're ready to work together to improve our public schools, and the time is now to invest in our public schools. It is indefensible that California ranks as the richest state in the richest country on planet Earth, ranks 44th in the country in per pupil funding for public education, with the ultimate result being our children, our families, and this city do not get the schools that we deserve. Plain and simply, our schools are being starved of the resources they need to be the schools that we want. Fortunately, we believe the people of this city are ready to step up and provide some of those needed resources by voting for Measure EE. Once passed, this measure will generate approximately $500 million per year for our LA schools and help provide smaller classes, more counselors, more nurses, more librarians, more mental health professionals, more custodians, more paraprofessionals, and with public oversight and annual independent audits to ensure that the money is spent wisely. After years of shared struggle, and during a time when most, if not all, of our civic institutions are being attacked, neglected, and starved, we have a unique opportunity as the City of Los Angeles in front of us. All stakeholders, including educators, education support staff, administrators, parents, students, and community organizations, and hopefully this City Council, are ready to come together to act collectively and decisively for this city and for LA schools, and in turn also continue to catalyze the necessary movement for increased school funding across this country. Measure EE gives all of us the chance to truly invest in the common good by investing in our schools. And support for Measure EE by this City Council will signify your embrace of the essential role of a public school district in the civic life of a great city. So we urge your support for the resolution for Measure EE. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Council. My name is Conrado Guerrero, and I'm a building engineer at LAUSD, and I'm also the president of Local SEIU Local 99. Local 99 represents over 30,000 classified employees and support staff at LA Unified. We are the bus drivers, the food service workers, building and grounds workers, teachers assistants, special education assistants, school supervision aides, and many more who come together to provide every student with a healthy, clean, safe, and supportive learning environment. Our local supports Measure EE because we saw how the Great Recession disseminated the district. We saw students, families, and school employees suffer as services cut across the board. We worked to pass Proposition 30 and 55 to end the economic freefall, and we did it. However, many of our critical student services never recovered and are now only getting back to 2008 levels. Still, California continues to rank 44th in education in per pupil funding, where Props 30 and 55 kept us from driving off the fiscal cliff. Measure EE will help us pave a new road for public education by investing the resources needed to build a better future for our communities. Measure EE will support quality academic programs while ensuring all students attend safe and healthy schools. Measure EE will not only help reduce class sizes, but will provide the staffing necessary to guarantee that the classrooms is clean and a conducive student learning environment. We support the strict accountability requirements Measure EE provides by requiring that every dollar be used to support local schools and cannot be taken by the state or federal government. Measure EE will have public oversight and requires annual independent audits to ensure that all dollars are spent as promised. Educators, teachers, parents, and community leaders are united in support of Measure EE. Now is the time to invest in public education, We cannot afford to wait and let our schools fall further behind. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, gentlemen. Where are the women on your board? Okay. Anyways, I had to point that out. I had to do that. Nice to see you, Dr. Vladovic. And thank you, Mr. Buscaino, for asking me to co-present this really important resolution this morning. I am no stranger to struggles of our school district. I am a proud product of LA Unified School District. I know what this district does really, really well, and I know what this district needs to improve on. And I remember, Dr. Vladovic, you and I being on the school board back in 2010, when we had year after year of bad budget decisions, and decisions that I never felt were good for kids and were definitely not good for teachers. And so this parcel tax to me means skin in the game. I have a daughter. Dr. Vladovic, I had just had a baby when I was elected to the school board. My daughter is now 10 years old, and she's a 4th grader at Vintage Magnet Science School in North Hills. And I'm one of those parents who has to drive 15 minutes or 20 minutes outside of her neighborhood to send her kid to school. But that is the school that works for us. And because of her, because of children like Isabel and the countless others that have to either travel to other parts of our city to send their kids to school or have to settle for what's in their neighborhoods, we need to do better by our children. Mr. Buscaino, this is not only about our kids, but it's about generations to come. It's about kids who are going to finally have a shot at an equitable and good education in the state of California. It is embarrassing that we are 44th in the country. It is embarrassing that California being the richest state in the country, we are 44th in per pupil spending. We used to do it right in the state of California, and we have lost our way. And if we want true equitable representation and education for all kids, we need to make sure that we're funding our schools correctly. So, Mr. Superintendent Buettner, I just want to give you a small little plug for my kids' school. Vintage, and you will love this. Vintage Science Magnet School is going to go to the Robotics World Championship in Louisville, Kentucky. And our school is having to raise money to send the kids to a world championship representing LA Unified School District. We need to do better by our kids. It's time to do it today. Make sure that we vote for this parcel tax. Thank you very much, Mr. Buscaino.
Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Buscaino and Ms. Martinez, for bringing this forward to us. We have to remember we've actually moved up to 44th. I remember when, was it 49th? At one point we were saying, well, we're ahead of Louisiana. Well, great, but I think we've been in this situation since Prop 13 40 years ago or so, and we stopped having the ability to fund the schools ourselves. And we've been in the low 40s, and it's been an embarrassment, and we've had to dramatically increase class size and cut nurses and cut counselors and cut librarians and cut arts and music and so many other things that you really need to have a decent, well-rounded school system and to give your kids a decent education. And it's been an embarrassment just about my whole adult life watching this happen. And I feel that this is akin to our crisis with the homeless, where I actually have had people saying, I want to help. Tell me how I can help. I want to give some money to the school system. People out there, I think, supported the strike, and it wasn't just because they love teachers, which they do, but it was because they understand we've reached a point where for too many years we haven't done what we needed to for our children and for this school system. And I think this is a modest step in the right direction, but it'll get us off the 44th spot and actually start to move us forward to where we're spending at least a modestly appropriate amount for education. I don't see how we can even think about doing anything else
other than supporting this action and educating our community and make sure that they vote for it and start to bring our district in the right direction in terms of funding. I mean, you can say there are other decisions we can make, but without the funding, there's only so much you can do with this huge lack of resources that we've had for decades. And I have to say, I've been involved in campaigns for school board members, and I've helped elect some great people over the decades, but we always seem to have the same problem, and it's not because of who the leaders are at a particular time, it's because we just don't have the funding. So this has to end. I thank you, board members, for being here, and union leaders, and let's do this.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. And I recognize that the board has an 11 o'clock meeting, but I'd like to call on Mr. Rue, and then you guys can get and take, leave, go take care of your business, and then we'll vote on this. Mr. Rue?
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Mr. Buscaino for also including me in co-authoring this very, very important motion today. And I want to thank the LAUSD School Board, the Superintendent, UTLA, everyone here, because this past January, the City of Los Angeles witnessed a historic display of support for our teachers and our students. That kicked off a conversation about public education and the future, and for the future of our children nationwide. And as a proud LAUSD graduate, our students, our future leaders, deserve strong schools, a strong district, and teachers who are supported. They deserve more than lecturers. They deserve mentors, teachers, and counselors who are examples of what it means to care for your community. And they certainly deserve to see a nurse when they fall ill. This conversation was not just limited to Los Angeles. Across the state and across our country, we are seeing Americans stand up and demand greater investment in education and more support for schools in every neighborhood, and for a better future for all of our children. We know that the strike was not an end to the conversation, but the beginning. This struggle does not just belong to Los Angeles, and we are past due for a renewed investment in education from every level of government. Before us today is a resolution to increase local funding for our public schools, and it's time for Los Angeles and the state of California to invest in our children, invest in our public education, and invest in our futures. So I ask all my colleagues for an aye vote. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you. Okay, Mr. Buscaino, and then I have public comment.
Yes,
I
sir.
want to let the board go.
So let us, Mr. President, if we can, let's add some women voice to this issue. I have my special guest here, Jocelyn Perez from Garfield High School, an alum, also representing the inner city struggle, and Toy Jackson, who is a special education instructor out of Woodlake Elementary, to give a minute each.
Good morning, council members. My name is Jocelyn. I'm here with Inner City Struggle, and I'm here for support of the Measure EE. So I graduated from Garfield High School, and I wanted to share my experience and my story for the support of the measure. When I went to college, I realized that I was very unprepared. Everybody else was just so advanced, and talking to other students in the colleges, I realized of all the experiences that we missed out on because my school was underfunded. In high school, I registered to be in AP chemistry, and when the semester came up, they told us that the class was no longer available because we didn't have the money for it. And so, honestly, our schools need more science labs. We need we need smaller class sizes. We need more teachers, and I believe that our community deserves to have a great experience in high school and to be prepared for college. I want to see my siblings and members of my community succeed with the good foundation in their schooling. So I hope that you guys are able to invest in us, the students of our city, and our future by making education a top priority in our communities.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Ms. Jackson to say a few words. Thank you, Toy.
Hi, my name is Toy Jackson, a special ed assistant. I'm also an executive board member of SEIU Local 99. It represents over 30,000 classified employees, and we're support staff at LA Unified. I am here to urge the council to support Measure E. The students I work with are some of the most vulnerable in the district. They require direct and constant care and support. Yet, because of funding shortage, special education supports continue to hover over pre-recessive levels. Our students deserve better. Measure E is a critical part of the solution to the public education funding crisis that our schools find themselves in. Teachers, classified employees, and school district leaders agree that Measure E will provide much needed resources for our local schools. So I hope you guys really support this measure, EE. It will help all of us in all of the school districts. The school district as well.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. With that, turn to public comment, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. If I could get, and again, if you need to go, I need to get Mr. Herman and Mr. Spindler. Please come forward.
Isn't that the untruth? George, as you leave? Did you not hear what they're doing with LAUSD? Since 2010, I've been observing that our education has failed. The same way we're forcing our families to pay for an education in college, which violates our civil rights, constitutionality of what's free in America. Nothing is free in America, and I know. So when you stand here with your lies about more assistance and help in schools, it's not there. You failed, LAUSD. You proved no fucking deal with 42 U.S.C. 1983, which I improved my communication for you. I am the educator of life and death now. I am the Dark Knight who sees the education deploring and institution.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Spindler. Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Spindler, going once, going twice. Okay, Mr. Spindler. All right, that ends public comment on this item. I'm sorry, Mr. Cedillo? Or maybe there's a... Okay, so let's prepare to vote on this. Nope. Did you want to speak on this, Mrs. Cedillo?
Well, just let me reiterate what my colleague, Mr. Koretz, was saying, that this is unsustainable, and much of the roots and origins of this come from Proposition 13. Proposition 13 was designed to protect homeowners, but there's been a perpetual abuse of Prop 13 because businesses have benefited from that. And so there's constantly a suggestion, a discussion about a split roll so that homeowners could be protected, but that other entities that were not intended to be protected would pay their fair share. This is not sustainable. We cannot continue to be 44th in the nation and be the 5th largest economy. At some point, these two currents will crash and one will prevail. Ignorance should not prevail. Enlightenment should. And so I just wanted to stand and join my colleague, Mr. Koretz, in noting that this is not a new conversation, that we should fund schools to the levels that they need to be funded. I'm always distressed whenever we say, well, this is not even enough what we need, whether it's a minimum wage, and then we ask for a higher minimum wage and say, but it doesn't really meet what our needs are. In this instance, we're talking about funding our schools and then saying, but it's not really going to meet what our needs are. We should determine what our needs are, we should prioritize those needs, and then we should develop fiscal strategies that will accomplish that. I do recognize, I do have a concern that we should have support from the business community. We cannot have business prosper in the future. We don't have an educated workforce. The economy is changing by the second, and we must have new workers prepared for new jobs in the future. And so it's important that we have their support. It's also important that we have the support of the Latino community. And I'm concerned that there was inadequate representation both on the board and on the presentation today from the Latino community. Those are the majority, the vast majority of the students in the schools are Latinos and Latinas. The vast majority of the voters are going to be Latinos and Latinas. They should see people who look like them supporting this proposition. As my colleague, Nuri Martinez, constantly says, if you can't see it, you can't believe it, you can't be it. And so we should, and there should be that type of leadership in the presentation of this proposal, because this is the future, and if Latinos aren't included in their vision for the future, it will not be successful. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate.
13 ayes.
Okay, that's approved. Mr. O'Farrell for a presentation.
Mr. President, colleagues, Curran Price and I are joined by the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund, otherwise known as SALEF, Clínica Romero, the Salvadoran community as we commemorate the legacy of St. Oscar A. Romero, and we're also joined by Consul General Mercedes Lopez Peña. Welcome,
Give
everyone.
her a round of applause.
March 24th marks the 39th anniversary of St. Oscar A. Romero's martyrdom when he was killed at the pulpit at the Church of the Divine Providence in San Salvador. We recognize St. Romero's advocacy for the poor and the persecuted, which made him the voice of the voiceless. And despite the death threats against his life in the midst of a civil war, Archbishop Romero continued his campaign for human rights. We commemorate a man who for many decades past his lifetime has stood as a figure of hope for the Salvadoran people. He represents the moral voice against the injustices and human rights violations that led Salvadorans to flee their country and seek refuge in the United States. Many thousands in the city of Los Angeles, spread through all of our council districts, with a concentration in council districts 9, 13, 1, and beyond. SALEF and Clínica Romero have been leading the Central American Caravan in efforts for the purpose of providing food, supplies, and access to basic medical and dental needs from right here in the city of Los Angeles to the border. There have been numerous trips since 2018, with each trip between $3,000 and $5,000 spent on direct aid and services of in-kind, ranging from $1,500 to $5,000 to deal with the crises at the border that are manufactured and are the result of our own President of the United States violating acts of Congress from 1980. On President's Day weekend, fittingly, we led a humanitarian delegation, Curran Price and I, with El Rescate, St. John's, Well Child and Family Center, Equality California, and the National Lawyers Guild, where we visited 9 shelters, including Little Haiti and the only LGBT safe house shelter in Tijuana. We visited these shelters, we visited unaccompanied minors, who were part of the caravan from Central America, staying at a place of refuge led by a former officer in the police department there in Tijuana, and saw firsthand with these shelters that we visited the dire needs that people are living in and the circumstances they're living under. I love the fact that this wonderful delegation cares so deeply and brings their compassion to the border for people who sometimes feel that they're in the wilderness, all because they've left their circumstances that are sometimes very, very dangerous, and they've left oppression in their own countries to seek a better life in the United States. And what do they meet at the border? They meet an organization at the border led by our own Trump administration, and they're faced with yet a new form of discrimination, fewer hearings than ever before, in an orchestrated move to really deny people seeking asylum their rights. So thank goodness, thank God we have organizations like this to provide a little bit of humanity for people seeking a better way of life. Now I'd like to introduce Curran Price, who joined us at this wonderful visit a month ago.
Mr. Price.
Thank you, Councilman O'Farrell, and I'm pleased to join with our friends from the diaspora celebrating the voice of St. Oscar Romero. His voice has transcended time to harmonize those feelings of justice and equality. Compassion, morality, and advocacy were ingrained in his teachings and his speech. And his words are as relevant today as they were during the Civil War in El Salvador. As you've heard, I recently joined Councilmember O'Farrell, Careson, Salif, Plenico Romero, and others on a trip to Mexico to see the refugee situation. It's one that I'm sure would have spoken to the heart of St. Romero, and it spoke to the heart of us all. What's happening at the border is a humanitarian crisis. Children are being separated from their families, and they are living on the streets. And we must all do our part to end the suffering that's taking place there. St. Romero once said, "When we struggle for human rights, for freedom, for dignity, when we feel that this is a ministry of the church to concern itself for those who are hungry, for those who have no schools, for those who are deprived, and we are not departing from God's promise." Let us all reflect upon these words and remember how he lived his life among the poor, to serve them and to protect them. His cause was one of social justice that will be carried on not only in El Salvador, but across the globe. And that's why we are all gathered here today, to ensure that St. Romero's life is remembered. Thank you.
Mr. Price. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to invite our executive director of SALAF, Jocelyn Duarte, who is the brains and the brawn and the beauty behind these visits to the border. She literally drives the vans through the streets of Tijuana to make sure we get from A to B to C to D to E and F on time, providing aid to these people in need. Jocelyn Duarte.
Good morning, everybody. San Romero's legacy as a Salvadoran American means a lot to us, to me personally. We have to take San Romero's legacy. He taught us that we must speak out against injustices. He utilized his position to reach many and provide comfort to those who suffered. He paid the ultimate price with his life, denouncing the injustices that the Salvadoran people endured. Today, we must carry on his legacy and work to help others that are in need. We must denounce the injustices that all people, regardless of their race, class, and gender and sexuality, experience. We have to work together to create a more equitable society. So we thank you very much for this proclamation, council members. And we would like to also acknowledge Monsignor Romero Oscar Charter School that's here, the students who are our future that will carry on that work.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. That's excellent. Now, 4 years ago, in the spring of 2015, I had the great pleasure of going to San Salvador with our friend Carlos Vaquerano for the beatification of Oscar Romero. We visited the Church of the Divine Providence, and we visited the place where Oscar Romero lost his life and where he lived, which was just across the street from there. It was a wonderful trip. Oscar Romero is now a saint in the Catholic Church. It gives me great honor to invite the executive director of Clínica Romero, our friend Carlos Vaquerano.
Thank you, Council Member. Buenos dias. I want to again thank all of you for always supporting the Salvadorian community and especially supporting our efforts to remember Monsignor Romero's legacy. For the past 15 years, we've been organizing this event here at City Hall, and every time we come, I see that everybody support what we do. As we remember the life and legacy of Monsignor Romero, we must remember that the only way that we can pay tribute to what he did is by continuing fighting for social justice. And that's what we do at Clínica Monsignor Romero every day. We continue to serve and defend the rights of immigrants. We provide mental health, dental services, and medical services to the undocumented community and the underserved. We are proud of what we do with Clínica Romero, with our partnership with El Rescate, SALEF, and other organizations supporting the immigrant community in Los Angeles. I invite you to go to the border and witness by yourself what's going on there. And in the future, as I have invited other council members, go to the land of Monsignor Romero. Go to the land of Monsignor Romero so you can come back and learn what we do and what his legacy represents for all of us. So thank you again, and I'd like to invite Monsignor Oswaldo Escobar, who represents the Catholic Church of El Salvador, to share a reflection. Thank you.
Buenos días a cada uno de ustedes. Es un gusto poder hablar un par de palabras sobre la figura de Monseñor Romero, agradecerles a ustedes la sensibilidad que tienen para con nuestro pastor y mártir, San Óscar Arnulfo Romero. Este próximo domingo se va a celebrar un aniversario más de su martirio, los 39 años de su martirio, y pues su figura cada día acapara la atención de todas las personas. Romero está comprometido con toda la causa de los derechos humanos, del compromiso por la justicia, porque en estos tiempos ser cristiano, en cualquier denominación que sea, tiene que haber un compromiso por la justicia, por los derechos humanos. También las Naciones Unidas, el 24 de marzo, ha declarado, recordando el asesinato, el martirio de Monseñor Romero, el Día Internacional contra la Tortura, contra todas esas vejaciones contra los derechos humanos. Agradezco a esta ciudad que tenga tan dentro del corazón la figura de nuestro santo, de nuestro mártir, y agradezco a todos ustedes en nombre de El Salvador, pues de la Iglesia salvadoreña, toda la preocupación y todo el cariño que tienen en favor de nuestro santo, de nuestro mártir. Gracias.
Thank you, Father. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. O'Farrell, we have a member on the queue whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we're first going to hear from a student speaker, and I think coming from the charter school, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. So we're going to hear from Evelyn Leon. Evelyn.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Leon, and I am from Works, and we are leadership students, and we are glad to be here.
We're good. Keep going. Keep going. You got it. You got this, Evelyn.
We are happy to be here, and thanks to Oscar Romero, we've been trying our hardest to do what he did and his legacy and continue what he did.
You're doing fine. Yeah? Very good. Thank you, Evelyn. Very nice. Thank you. I think that was Evelyn's first time ever speaking into a microphone, right? Good job. Good job. Lastly, me siento orgulloso de estar aquí con todos ustedes a rendir homenaje a la vida y enseñanzas de Monseñor Oscar A. Romero, porque hoy honramos la vida de un hombre que durante muchas décadas y décadas pasadas de su vida se ha destacado como una figura de esperanza para todos nuestros hermanos salvadoreños. Estamos dedicados a mejorar el bienestar y luchar por los derechos humanos de nuestra comunidad salvadoreña en Los Ángeles. Gracias. Thank you.
So now you're trilingual, Mr. O'Farrell. I've heard you speak Armenian too.
I give it my best.
Sir, we have two members on the queue.
Oh, good.
Can we go to the members?
I'll tell you what, let's present the certificates, then we'll go to the members. So it gives us great honor and pleasure on the 39th anniversary of his martyrdom that Mr. Price and I present to the entire delegation gathered today on the 39th anniversary, this day of remembrance and a certificate marking that important historical event, St. Oscar A. Romero and his martyrdom. Thank you. Step forward. And Jocelyn and the Consul General. And everyone. Come. There we go. We all got to have a piece of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it shines, so we won't raise it up, we'll lower it, but tilt it. There you go, there you go. All right.
Mr. Cedillo?
Madam Chair, thank you. Let me begin by thanking the young woman who came up to spoke. Yeah, let's start that again. Let's redo the tape. Let me begin by thanking the young woman who came up to speak, Evelyn Leon. You did a great job, and you're going to do a better job, and you're going to be a great speaker in the future, and so I really applaud you. I know that it's a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, but your parents are going to be very excited. They're going to go home. You're going to go home and watch yourself on television, and you did a great job. So I want to just tell you that and tell you I'm so proud of you and what you've done. And you're a great example of the future of our city. You know, Madam Chair, I was able to go to San Salvador in 1978. I had this kind of motorcycle diary summer and went through El Salvador and Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Guatemala. And I was so impressed by the experiences of a community, of a society, of a country in crisis and in war. And it's nothing like an experience like that that brings you closer to God and challenges and reaffirms your faith. One of the great quotes that I like from Monsignor Romero is the following, and let me say this to you. We cannot do everything, and from that there's a sense of liberation. When we understand the limits of what we can and cannot do, there's this sense of liberation that in realizing that this enables us to do something. It's the same thing Mother Teresa says, that we all have an ability to do something, and that we should choose to do one thing and do it very well. And while it may not be complete, while we may not solve the entire problem, it is the beginning, and it's a step in the right direction, and it's an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and to do the rest. And so on our day of service, our office went down, Jocelyn, and to make our visit, to understand that the claims of an emergency at the border are simply a fraud, that this simply something manufactured, unfortunately, by the president of our country, but that the only emergency at the border is the lack of leadership, the lack of commitment, the lack of people coming together to address these problems of these refugees. And that's what they are. They are refugees. They are not immigrants. They are people who are part of a diaspora, who are at the border because they have legal and constitutional rights to apply for asylum that are being abridged every single day by the policies and the practices of this country. That is an embarrassment. But we should continue to do what we can, as Monsignor Romero would have us do. Do what we can, do all that we can to make sure that we bring some comfort, some hope, and some dignity to those at the border. And so I applaud you, Jocelyn, for your work and your leadership. David is on the floor. Are you on the floor, David? Where's David? There he is, not David Rude. David Hiron is doing incredible work on this project, and I want to acknowledge that. And the work of Salif, who, Carlos, you and I have a very long history from the very beginning of the organization, those very, very early morning meetings that we used to have at Linda's restaurant. And so I want to acknowledge that and acknowledge your work at the Clinica, because those services are really what the community depends on. And I noted that Local 99 was here. My relationship with the Justice for Janitors, with many of SEIU's unions, they fight so hard so that their members can get health care and that they can go to Cedars-Sinai. But the fact of the matter is, those members don't go there. They go to Clinica Romero. And that's where they get their services, even if they're insured. It's helpful, but they go there because Clinica Romero provides services that are bilingual, bicultural, and provide a sense of safe space for the patients and their children and their children's friends who they inevitably bring with them when they take their visits to the clinic. And so I want to thank you for that. And finally, Madam President, just let me say that in a time of crisis in our nation, that the leadership that was articulated by the Monsignor is the type of leadership and commitment to service that we should all strive for each and every day while we're here on the floor. I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President. And colleagues, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, Mr. Price, for bringing in this really important presentation, and to thank everybody that has joined us here today. It's really a celebration of your continued work, and in the Monsignor's name. You know, I can't go back to 1978. I was only 4 years old at the time, but I can talk about 25 years ago when I started my career in the city, working with the first Councilmanic District and working so closely with my friend Carlos Vaquerano, with organizations like Clinica Romero, like El Rescate, to provide the critical services that our communities depend on, to speak the indigenous languages that can only be found in your clinics to help service those in most need in our community. So I want to thank you for extending that important legacy here in Los Angeles that our community can continue to rely on. And I want to thank you both for your continued commitment to servicing the needs of the families that are in the struggle right now, those immigrant families that are seeking refuge in this country that has made that commitment and that promise to fulfill for all of our communities. And so I want to thank you for your work in continuing that important legacy here in Los Angeles. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That concludes the members on the queue, Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And lastly, I want to highlight the great works of two of my very important team members, and that is Salvadoreños, William Ayala, right here. William, thank you so much, who really helps in coordinating these efforts with my office. And then Mr. David Hiron, who is a board member of SALAF and has been it's David who really made it possible for me to fully experience this trip and all that it revealed, the truths, the realities that this trip revealed, and his great work, selfless work, and is the example of a first generation of American who gives back to the community from which he came. So hats off to you, Mr. Giron. Thank you. I think so.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. Members, let's go ahead and vote on reconsideration of item number 2. Madam Clerk, let's open the roll for reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, item 2 is now before us, members. Let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and move on to vote on items number 28, 30, 31, 33, 35, and 36, items 40, 41, 42, 43, and 44. Let's go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Close those items pass. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and go to item 29. We have a speaker on item 29. Mark Kenyon, are you here? Mark Kenyon, item 29. Good morning, sir. Sergeants, can you please let this gentleman by? Good morning. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Mark Kenyon. I have the honor and privilege to be the Executive Director of Northeast Trees. I'm here before you on item 29, which is a project to plant 200 native drought-tolerant trees in the open space areas of Debs Park, along with hundreds of other native plants to both infiltrate water, clean our air, and to reduce the fire risk in that area. There was one question from Councilmember Cedillo's office concerning the maintenance and operations. Northeast Trees is obligated by the MOU that's before you this morning to take on the 20-year maintenance and operations of the improvements as per our agreement with the State of California Coastal Conservancy grant for $300,000. So we're happy to do that. We hire and train at-risk youth from the local communities, and it's our intention to use those efforts as a way to take some of the most underserved members of our communities that need training and to provide that for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, let's go ahead and open up the roll for item 29. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 24. Mr. Blumenfield, item 24,
Yes,
sir.
thank you. Thank you, Madam President. In fact, I'd like to bring up Jessica Caloza to the table. Colleagues, Jessica Caloza is Mayor Eric Garcetti's nominee for the open seat on the LA Board of Public Works. Now, we would have had we would have grilled you extensively in Public Works, but 2 weeks ago when we were scheduled to hear this, we had a marathon closed session and we had to cancel the Public Works. So you're here today, but I should say, even though we don't have a formal recommendation from the committee, you and I got to have a really good conversation, and I got a real sense of your enthusiasm, and based on your credentials and your enthusiasm, I, as the chair of the committee, am strongly recommending your nomination to this body as we move forward. Just a couple of quick things about Jessica, and then I want to open it up to her. Not only has she worked for the mayor since 2017, she also worked in the Obama administration. She was a senior policy analyst there. She's done a tremendous amount of things. She served as on the Leadership Council for the Center of Asian Americans for Self-Empowerment, which is, the acronym is CAUSE. And we're excited that she's here before us willing to give her time for the Board of Public Works. So I'm going to open it up basically with a question for you, which is if you could share with this council why you're interested in serving on the board, what you hope to accomplish, just little things like that, and how you're going to make this city a better place. Jessica.
Thank you so much, Councilman Blumenfield. I think it's still morning. Good morning. Good morning, Madam President, and to every single council member here. Thank you also to Mayor Eric Garcetti and to our Chief of Staff, Ana Guerrero, for giving me this opportunity today. I'm so excited to be here with you all today for this opportunity to work with City Council and with the Mayor's Office on the Board of Public Works. The board plays such a critical role in the lives of daily Angelenos, rich or poor, young or old, and that's what I truly love most about the work of the board, is that it touches every single person in this city. And being a commissioner on this board carries a lot of responsibility, one that I plan on taking very seriously, especially as a first-generation immigrant whose first experience here in the United States was right here in Los Angeles. And it's why I have such a passion to serve and why I'm in public service, because it was through good public programs and through good public institutions that my family in one generation was able to succeed, and why I'm here today. One of my first priorities that I would like to take on as a commissioner would be to look at the metrics that we're collecting with our city services and to expand upon them. We collect a number of metrics that are available online now on our data dashboard. It shows what metric it is, the city service, and the fiscal year it's due. And this is a tremendous starting point for a large-scale city. But I think we can do a little bit more to really disaggregate this data and provide some district-specific information to better inform the decision-making process of where our resources and services go, not only to the benefit of the mayor's office and city council, but ultimately to our residents. A second priority I would take on is expand access to these very services through language access, an issue that is incredibly sensitive to me since English is my second language, as I know it is for so many people in this room and in the city. And we are a city of 4 million residents, and you can see that so clearly when you go through our neighborhoods and through all our districts: Thai Town, Chinatown, El Pueblo, Little Tokyo, historic Filipino town, and so much more. And how people access the services that we already provide should really reflect that. So these are two of a longer list of priorities I really hope to take on with the support and help of all the other commissioners and all their great work so far. And lastly, I just want to conclude in saying that while I'm here to serve every Angeleno, I do take my responsibility as a representative of the Asian American and Filipino American community very seriously. Especially as a woman. And sorry, I don't want to cry. It would be an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity for my community and for my city. And I look forward to a long and prosperous working relationship with the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one speaker on the queue, Councilmember Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to rise in support of Jessica for this position on the Board of Public Works. I've known her since she came to the mayor's office in 2015, and she's a close colleague and good friend of my wife, Gail. And I know that she'll do this job with dedication and integrity and drive. And I know I've met her parents, and I know they've taught her the value of hard work. And I know you'll be a great member. And most importantly, you and your husband, Matt, are cat lovers, and that seals the deal for me. And I know that your breadth and depth of government experience will serve you well in this position. So I know you're going to be representing CD5 on the board, so I look forward to working with you and congratulate the mayor on the great appointment and look forward to serving with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I too want to thank Mayor Garcetti for this recommendation. Jessica, just your passion and your dedication to our city is evident, and your love for service is clear. I just want you to take a moment to look behind you of your family who is here and so supportive of this appointment, and the fact that you recognize your Filipino heritage, and this is exactly what makes Los Angeles an amazing place to live, work, and visit. And we have to make sure that we appoint commissioners that reflect the people we represent. And so congratulations with that. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner Calosa. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
With that, let's take that item, Mr. Blumenfield, forthwith, if you're okay with that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Fantastic, without objection. Okay, with that, believe we have item 3. Let's take item 3. Item 3 is now before us for a verbal amendment. And with that, I'd like to recognize Mr. Cedillo.
Yes, on item 26, we want to
Item
adopt
3.
that with
We're on
these-
item 3.
I'm sorry?
Did you hold item 3?
No.
Okay, let's take item 26 then. Item 6 is now before us. 26 rather.
26, I think we have speakers on that, don't we?
You held.
No? It's ready. Who are you?
Okay. So for a verbal amendment, Mr. Cedillo, item 26 is now before us.
For the record, let me note that it's been determined with the approval of Captain Arturo Sandoval, commanding officer of the Northeast, that the LAPD will be unopposed to this project. Acting in the best interest of the public, the department recommends operating conditions be imposed which should diminish vice-related problems.
Excuse me, I believe this is item 3.
Okay. I think you're right. We're trying to get on item 26.
Oh.
Thank you.
Item 26 is this. Move to adopt the CEO report.
Yes. Are we on 3 or 26? 6 is a simple move to adopt the CAO report.
Okay, that's the one before us, 26.
Yeah.
So with that,
And a second for his motion to adopt the CAO
we need a
recommendations?
second.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we have a second. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved.
That's very embarrassing.
And
now
that-
let's, go ahead.
That takes us back to item 3.
Item 3, Mr. Cedillo.
Let us again, for the purposes of the record, note that it's been determined and approved by our local captain, Arturo Sandoval, that the LAPD is no longer opposed to this project. In the best interest of the public, the department recommends certain operating conditions be imposed which should diminish our concerns about vice-related problems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, colleagues, no speakers on the queue. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, item 3 is approved. Thank you. Okay, let's turn down to item number 1. We have speakers on item number 1. Is it Dawn?
What
For
happened?
1A?
Go find out. Go find out. Go
Dawn,
talk to
come
him.
forward. On 1A. Okay, Don?
Good morning, council members.
Good morning.
My name is Adonis Hampton. I'm the owner of the property 5627 Agnes Avenue, Valley Village, California, 91607. And I'm here today to present you with my opposition to the recording of a lien. And if I may, I'd like to submit this opposition to the board.
Sergeant, can you please grab Mr. Hampton's materials, sir? Thank you.
Let me start by saying I've prepared a comprehensive 4-page opposition brief, which I just handed over, which includes documented evidence outlining the reasons why the commission should not move to record any such additional liens on the subject property. And I would ask the commission to take this matter under submission until it has reviewed the evidence submitted prior to making any final determination.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time's expired, sir.
My time has expired?
Yes, sir. What we're going to do with the new information, we're going to hold this over for 30 days.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Without objection, that'll be the order.
Can you tell me what happens after the 30 days and when a decision
we'll have
is
staff
made?
on the ropes. What's the date? 30 days from now?
And for the record, that would be April 17th. So the request is to continue 1A to April 17th, and there are also requests to continue 1C and 1E to April 17th.
Thank you, ma'am. With that now, let's take item on 1G. We have a card on 1G. That's Bruce McIntosh. Please come forward.
Yes,
Good morning.
thank you. I'm Bruce McIntosh. I'm here on behalf of the First Trust Deed owner, and I wanted you to know that we are in fact current with the owner of the property, and we are going to give them the opportunity to try to cure the lien themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Young Chun, please come forward. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Chun, not here. Okay, so now let's vote the items before us.
And Mr. President, the Department of Building and Safety recommends that items 1F and 1I be received and filed as the liens have been paid in full, and that the following liens be confirmed at $4 less than the printed amounts, and that would be for 1B, 1D, 1G, 1H, and 1J.
Without objection. So let's now open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That's approved. We did have a speaker on item 3, so let us, colleagues, reconsider item number 3. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now item 3 is before us. We have Bill Watkins to speak on item number 3.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see everyone. I support a defer. It sounded like it was deferred or delayed, this vote, so I'm okay with that. It's a fundamental. I'm alcoholic, 17 years sober, and I look up and I see alcohol as a necessity, and I question the language on the motion. The language needs to be fleshed out. We need to research the substance, alcohol, maybe like we're children and we're doing this for the first time. It's dangerous. C2H5OH, ethyl alcohol, is a flammable, volatile, clear substance known as a toxin. And we need to examine. It's certainly not a necessity unless on the battlefield, maybe to cover a wound or do something of this nature. So let's rethink. I'm for rethinking alcohol everywhere. And thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. So with that, let's now, on item 3, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. That is approved. Let's now turn to general public comment. If I can call up Bill Watkins, please come forward. He'll be followed by Wayne. Is Wayne Spindler here? Lincoln. Patricia McAllister. Mr. Watkins, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. I had to shush Mr. Buscaino. It's crazy. Such a full city hall today. And I hope we can find order a little better in the future, but I like the steps we've taken against abuse on the microphone. I see a disclaimer in the front when we're signing up to speak, and I like to see that rules and decorum are trying to be followed. I really appreciate it personally. It's very offensive to me to hear offensive language, especially against women. There's no place for it, and we need to all collectively stand up, literally stand up. If someone's being abused, everybody stand up and resist abuse, whether it's at the White House or right here in this hall. I started probably one of the first love the police chants next door earlier this morning. I would like us all to consider loving our enemy, people that frustrate us, keep trying, and I look forward to coming either tomorrow or Friday with an idea for public safety. I hate helicopters, police helicopters, but I still love the people who fly them, and I look forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia McAllister. I don't see Wayne Spindler here, so take him off. Patricia McAllister, please come forward. Okay. Not on general, though. Herman. Eric Previn.
That's right. This is where we rock and roll. 42 U.S.C. 12204, communication to Javier Becerra, the Attorney General. Fuck you. And fuck Dick Durbin of Illinois, and fuck Charles Schumer of New York, and fuck Mr. Michael Bennett from Colorado, and you too, Jack Reed, and that fucking asshole from Virginia, Tim Kaine. We need security. We need to beef up our ICE and keep these fucking wetbacks like you, Jose Huizar, from fucking corrupting our system, and that fucking jackass Catholic Church from Salesian Bishop of Mont. Fuck the Catholic Church, fuck the DA, and fuck the nigger with the badge, because I'm here at last. Shake you, make you, and show you what, nigga attorney, that I don't stand back. I stick my foot right up your ass. That's why we got NWA. Fuck the police.
So to our visitors here for the first time, like you, we are all disgusted by those comments, but with the First Amendment, we do have council rules set forth, and we will adhere to those rules. But again, it's the First Amendment right that's been given to this knucklehead who allows us to speak like this in council chamber, so please bear with us. With that, Lizette Hernandez. No Lizette. Gloria Medina. Nancy Halpern Ibrahim. This is general public comment? No. Melissa Pantoja. Laura Garcia. Maria Gatska. No. Lydia Ponce. Ruby Dutcher. Andres Ramirez. Augustine Cabrera. Maro Kakusinian. They probably ran out of patience and left. Ben Galoff. Okay, so they are not here. Okay, we are now closed general public comment. With that, what's before us?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
And that clears the desk.
Thank you. Colleagues' announcements. Oh, you do. Okay. Any adjourning motions? Mr. Blumenfield.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, I ask that we adjourn in the memory of the victims of the March 15th shooting at the Al Noor Mosque and the Linwood Islamic Center in Christchurch, New Zealand during Friday prayer last week. This shooting, although yes, it was on the other side of the globe, is especially tragic for many reasons. First, of course, it occurred in a house of worship where people were just trying to find peace and commune. And second, because of the lethality of these shootings, 50 innocent souls lost their lives. And third, most importantly, this is another example of domestic terrorism that we see. This time it was in New Zealand against our Muslim brothers and sisters, but we see this time and time again. I wish I could say that this was not common. But we've had so many of these where we come, we adjourn, we do moments of silence. And I'm going to ask that we do a moment of silence in a few minutes, but it's just, I'm tired of being tired, the old expression. It's just this level of hate, we need to turn this around. We had, just last year, we had the domestic terrorists who went to the Tree of Life and murdered 11 Jewish worshipers. The year before, domestic terrorists opened fire in Texas in a church in Sutherland Springs and killed 26 worshipers. In June of 2015, a domestic terrorist entered Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, murdered 9 African-American worshipers. We see this in our houses of worship. Just not that long ago, we saw it up at the Borderline Grill, or Borderline shooting in Thousand Oaks. In this last shooting, some of these victims were children. Kids, for example, Saeed Milne, aged 14. He's remembered for his kind eyes and big heart and cheeky smile. He was planning on being an engineer or an architect. His principal talked about him. You also saw all sorts of acts of heroism, like we see, unfortunately, in all of these shootings. There was a tragedy when a wife, Hussein Ara Parvin, rushed back into the mosque because her husband, who was in a wheelchair, she wanted to save him. She saved him, but she was gunned down. So I'm going to ask that we put 50 seconds on the clock and that we look at the clock as it counts down. She can only do 1 minute. If you start it, I'll stop talking at 50 seconds. So start the clock. And that every moment that we see that time click by, we think about the soul that was lost. You know, a lot of times we do a minute, 2 minutes, 50, we'd be here for almost an hour if we did that. So we're going to give 1 second to remember. If you could hit the clock.
We can have people please stand in our audience. Thank you so much. If you're able to, thank you.
Moment of silence for the 50 seconds. Thank you. So we mourn with our brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters. And we in Los Angeles, we're gonna, you know, where it talks about tolerance, that's too low of a bar. We need to embrace each other, and we need to move forward and do everything we can and be a beacon of hope in this city. May they rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. Any others on the left side, to my right? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, the council adjourned today in the memory of Virginia Faye Wilson Watson, who died at the lovely age of 97. She was considered by the Chatsworth community to be Mrs. Chatsworth for almost her entire life. She was a columnist with the Los Angeles Daily News in her younger years, a member of the Daughter American Revolution, San Fernando Valley historian whose passion for saving the history of that really unique community called Chatsworth was her real life's passion. Virginia was born in Terre Haute, Indiana, and moved to the Valley in the 1950s with her husband. She'd go on to embrace the area's history as co-founder of the Chatsworth Historical Society. Her passion grew in saving the trees along Lassen Street near Chatsworth Park, which were very historic trees and olive trees in the area. They became historical monuments in the Chatsworth community. She also saved the Chatsworth Community Church, which originally was up on Topanga Canyon, was the church on the original Wells Fargo stagecoach route from Los Angeles over the hills of Simi Valley into Sacramento. And when they wanted to tear that down in the 1960s, she saved the church, had it piecemeal brought up to the Chatsworth Oaks Park mortuary area, and is now preserved as the first church in the San Fernando Valley. She was a lovely person in the community. Everybody loved Virginia. She helped found the Chatsworth Museum, which went on to became named the Virginia Watson Chatsworth Museum in her honor. She was a wonderful person that everyone in the community loved, and she will be missed in the Chatsworth community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the city family lost an incredible police officer in Renee Betancourt. We're joined here by his loving wife, Karina, and his son, Nathan, also representing the police department, Assistant Chief Gramala, Captain Musquez, and Captain Paulson, members of the Communications Division, and his brother and sister officers who are here. And I ask that we adjourn in memory of someone who has been in the thoughts and prayers, myself and my entire team, these past 2 weeks. Colleagues, in our municipal buildings, we see officers every day who keep our municipal buildings safe and offer a warm welcome as we're coming into work. They are efficient, consistently there, and because of their good work, our buildings are always safe. But we lost an amazing person who I've had the privilege of working with for the last 7 years as a council member, Renee Betancourt, an active member of the Los Angeles Police Department assigned to Security Services Division. He began his service with the City of Los Angeles on April 25th, 1985 as a security officer for the Department of Recreation and Parks. In July 1997, he transferred and began working at the LA Zoo. In May 2003, he saw an opportunity and transferred to the General Services Department and continued working as a security officer. In July 2012, the General Services Department, as you recall, merged with the Los Angeles Police Department, where Renee continued to work, proudly protect and serve the citizens, residents of Los Angeles. He staffed the San Pedro Municipal Building on and off for over a decade and was one of the longest serving officers in that position. My staff and I got to know Officer Betancourt over the years. He was a familiar face who had all of our best interests in mind, and he was part of our family. He shared countless memories and those stationed at the San Pedro Municipal Building. And when I first met Renee, I knew from day one that he was special. He would be proud to show the heart behind the badge and be that face when you welcomed people, residents, visitors into the municipal building. He went the extra mile for constituents and the entire building staff. There were times when he knew that we were having a rough day, as he always had a way of uplifting the mood and reminding us not to take things too seriously. It was these small things that we will miss the most about Renee. They made a real difference in our daily lives, and he will forever be missed. On February 12th, the day before Renee left for his birthday trip to Florida, my field staff celebrated over chocolate cake and a card. We shared this moment in our weekly newsletter. He couldn't wait for that trip. But it was the least we can do. He started each day with a pep talk from Renee, and he would look at all the positives, whether it was counting down to payday or sharing pictures from the weekend or the prayer of the day. He had a very close relationship with his faith, and it was a daily reminder to always count our blessings. The world lost a piece of sunshine when he left. But we will forever be blessed to have known him for the time that we have. After his sudden loss, my office was overwhelmed with the outpouring of support from many officers. He was just so special to us. He was special to the entire city family. The officers shared so many personal stories and empathized how amazing he was. They all shared a special relationship with him. We pray for strength, for blessings and love for his family, for Katrina and Nathan. So today we are honored to introduce a resolution honoring Renee's life. And we rarely do that here in council chambers. We will always remember the joyous moments we shared. May the city be a daily reminder of what Renee meant to all of us. He was a part of our family and always will hold a memory close to our hearts. Renee Betancourt, may he rest in peace.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Are there any other adjourned memories? Seeing no, nothing.
Chief Kamala would like to say a few words on behalf of the police department.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
For the
Thank you, Council, for making this time. It's a privilege always to be here with you. Just on a few personal notes, Renee came to us from Havana, Cuba. At the age of 3, he made Los Angeles his home. Here he shared it with beautiful Karina, Nathan, and son Isaiah, who is not here with us today. But I think what is very important for us to mention here as you look at his 33-plus year career, the importance of that history. I looked in his package and saw commendations, not those from the department or those recognized by his colleagues, but those that came from community members who spoke of his sincerity, his compassion, and his heart. That is what we treasure. That is what makes a great police officer, and that's what we will remember. So in closing, I'd like to just say to the family, we will be here for you, not only the LAPD family, but the entire city family. Renee Betancourt, serial number 4693. You may be end of watch, but you will be here forever in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Chief.
Beautiful. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Wilmington and San Pedro have always been the gateway to Catalina since back in the late 1800s. My father, myself, and a friend of mine started Catalina Express along with my brother Tim in 1981. And we came in to actually replace the seaplanes that were at that point going out of service. So what we needed to do was replace that service with fast boats. So we went out, we bought one boat, it was a 50 passenger, and we started out with doing 3 runs a day. About 1 million to 1.2 million people go to and from Catalina on an annual basis. And back in 1981 when we started, I think we carried 3,500 people that year. Both my daughter Amanda and my son Eric, they're all in the business. This building was actually built back in 1966, and it was the seaplane hangar building. They'd take off underneath the Vincent Thomas Bridge. Our goal was really to make it so people felt their trip started when they got here. There's bocce ball courts here located on premises. There's also a putting green. We got fire pits when it's chilly out, and people do seem to feel like they're on their way to Catalina as soon as they walk through the gate. Wilmington used to be the location for the freight service here to the island. And to bring them both onto the same property has been a home run. The Port of Los Angeles has been a real partner in this all the way along. They worked very well with us in trying to come up with a solution for this move. And I think that what we've come up with is one of the best locations we have. When we brought our employees back to this location, we were able to bring 100 employees back this way. Catalina Express employs approximately 325 employees in total, with the vessel crews and administration and ticket sales and the terminal facilities. Avalon Freight Services employs approximately 26 people, with operating the